Hi everybody, welcome to Homestead and welcome to my channel. We are now at the end of the Sunday morning session of General Conference, and I'm not wearing a white shirt and tie. Sorry, I can't, I don't know, but I'm doing just a plain black shirt, so still trying to be reverent and everything, but I think that's okay. Plain black shirt. Joseph Higgins, finally the prophet speaking. Lola Granola, the chicken doula. Howdy. Michael Burns, each talk was just what we needed. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give Chris credit from yesterday. He said that he had on good authority from one of President Nelson's friends that this would be a final warning. Maybe it was. You know, that was definitely, it was a talk that we needed to hear to be a Zion people, you know, because ultimately that's going to determine, well, if you are Zion, if you're going to be part of that group, I'm sure that, you know, is translated and caught up to meet Christ. And, you know, we know that those that are moving into the millennium are those that are terrestrial, living in terrestrial law right now, or celestial law. And if you're telestial, and you can definitely be in the church and still be telestial, you could even have all these different callings and have been a returned missionary or whatever the case and still be telestial in the way that you treat other people. We talk about it a lot of times on the channel, just being a narcissist, being a manipulator, being a predator, being a controller, a competitor, you know, treating everything like a competition, even spiritual things. And so now is the message that I get from his talk, President Nelson's talk, is now is the time to put that away, because if that's how you're living your life, you may not be moving into the millennium. You agree with Jenica says she agrees that it was probably a final warning. Barbara Short O'Brien or O'Brien, well, he was pretty bold when telling us we need to do better with anger and contention, and he was right. Yeah, definitely. Betty Horn, the prophet, called us out. We need to get it together in order to have Zion. Ginger S agrees. Okay, I'm going to skip down because now more people are joining. Let's see, how many do we got right now? Oh, there's already like 196 people watching right now. It's pretty good. Okay. Kristen Buck, skipping down. Great messages, and I have some improving to do. Well, you're not alone, Christine. We all do. I'm sure we're all like just kind of like, is he talking about me? Kakoabi H, another amazing conference. The theme seems to be to prepare us to receive the Savior. Yeah, I would agree. I feel like all this emphasis on Easter, but not just Easter, but Holy Week and Palm Sunday, it's a perfect time if Christ is going to come, say that he's going to come between now and next conference. You know, this would be an appropriate conference to really focus on Palm Sunday and things like that, like we've talked about before on the channel. And everything that they're talking about right now, it's like, you know, if Christ, okay, I'm sure you've had this experience before, maybe at work or in school or in the military or on a sports team or whatever. You have like some important person that's coming the next day or at the end of the week. And so the coaches, the teachers, your boss or whatever, they kind of get you to tidy up before that happens. Like, for example, when I worked at Discover, we had, I can't remember what the name of the position was, but some bigwig that was going to walk through our area. And so everybody had to like take down you were only allowed to have, I think it was something like you can only have one photo, like family photo in your cubicle. There couldn't be any other extra stuff, no flags, no other things to help you get through that job. Your cubicles had to be like perfectly wiped out, just like one photo before the walkthrough. I guess that's kind of a extreme example, but maybe that's kind of what this conference is a little bit, or maybe a lot of it, is getting ready, putting away the weapons of war, putting away the contention, because Christ is going to be here with us. And well, one, you want to make sure that you qualify to move into the millennium, but secondly, after you do, you don't want to be embarrassed by being somebody that lives opposite according to what he taught us. Shelley Klaus, he did repeatedly say, now is the time to do these things. Yep. Yeah, and remember in one of our previous live streams, I think it was the last one that we did last night. Not the one when I was in the car, but the one before that. President Nelson, now is the time. That was the name of his talk in the April 2022 General Conference. Here you go. Now is the time. So he repeated that again, but this time he said it many different times, talking about all these different things that we need to do. You'll have to excuse any misspellings or just the shabby appearance of my notes, but I think I wrote down some of the now is the time stuff here. Now is the time, if other people walk on eggshells around you, to stop doing that. Now is the time to bury weapons of war. I didn't catch them all, but he probably said at least like something like 5 different things to really emphasize now is the time, right? And you have to wonder, why now? Hasn't it always been the time? Well, of course it's always been the time, but he's emphasizing now in particular, probably because Christ is going to be here very, very soon. And we all need to be kind and not be a big embarrassment to ourselves and to the church. El Paculi Star says, we are moving towards a terrestrial world. I love the prophet. I pray for the strength to set aside my frailties, to help me, or to help with the gathering of Israel. Dayston, I got the message of living the higher, holier law. A lot of temple talk. Dayston from San Clemente, California. Cesar A. E. Guillen says, I wish President Nelson was invited to speak to Congress or before our nation. What he just powerfully said today is such clear words and language. So many of our politicians should be moved by this. Yeah, politicians, celebrities, us, the entire human family. Yep. Alps Hiker, love reading all the comments from each of you. Thank you. Latter-day Traveler, yes. Michelle, that song, This Is the Christ, was the best. Yeah, that is a good song, a good hymn. By the way, if you didn't know, maybe you already knew this, but the text for that was by James E. Faust. He was in the first presidency at the time of President Hinckley. And it's amazing that something produced in 2012 could sound that good. Well, I mean, okay, maybe that's... I just feel like within the church, outside the church, it's just like we can't go back to the days of like when things sounded classic. And well, by definition, things kind of sound classic because they're aged. And I was actually thinking about this whole business of elevating Easter to the level of Christmas, and I was thinking about what is it that makes Christmas so like festive, because a lot of it has to do with like the surrounding traditions and aesthetics, like the Christmas tree. And one of the things with Christmas is I think a lot of people are really attracted to the old time music that was produced in the early 1900s and before, maybe starting 1950 and before, just that classic, like I'm dreaming of a like Frank Sinatra, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas and stuff like that. And those are things that I doubt that we'll ever produce ever again, but maybe we can. I wish Easter had some kind of like really classic, old sounding songs like that to go along with Christmas. So, anyway, um, that's incredible that they were able to produce that good of a song in 2012. It just it doesn't sound. In other words, I think it's going to age well. There's songs that are definitely products of their time, but I don't think that'll ever be the case with this is the Christ. Trisha Christensen, I love what we all feel. I love that we all feel guilty of the same things. I love that we all desire to work on it now. Y'all make me feel unified in being better. Betty Horn, I Believe in Christ was by Bruce R. McConkie. Yeah, I knew that one. Jordan Romero, Silent Night. Just what happened to our ability to make music like that? I know some of it is just kind of cultural and a product of its time, but can we not bring that culture and that time back and just make good music? Don Ireland, I wish they'd put This Is the Christ in the new hymn book. Super awesome song. I'll bet they will. Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say they will. Diane Miller, my first cousin Michael Finlinson wrote the music for This Is the Christ. Oh, the music for it. Okay, so James E. Faust did the text. Michael Finlinson did the music. Cool. Mark T. President Nelson definitely gave us a serious talking to. Yeah, if you guys didn't catch one of my last live streams yesterday, there was a guy in here named Chris with 3 exclamation points. And he was all like, he had this insider knowledge, and he said that there was going to be a final warning. And I told him, I was like, Chris, if that's not true, you're getting everybody excited. And if it's not true, there's going to have to be some sort of penalty. You're going to have to do 1,000 push-ups, 1 push-up for every year of the millennium. But I think we might have to excuse him from that, because that did seem kind of like a warning. With all the now's the time, now's the time, now's the time repetition, as well as let me consult my notes here. Let me just go over kind of like what I put down from President Nelson's talk. He said, "You've been constantly on my mind." I think he said for the last 6 months, and he's said that a number of times. I think he even said it last conference, but there's a reason why he's saying that. He talked about a lot of it's interesting. He talked a lot about these different narcissistic behaviors, like the silent treatment. That's a well-known thing that toxic people do. They it's a form of like manipulation when you can't win with argument, or you're not getting through to the other person. Then it's like a tactic that you use by punishing them for not seeing your point of view. So you just like, you don't talk to them. You do the silent treatment. It's a very immature, childish way to deal with a problem. And if you've done that before, it's fine. You know, we've all had weaknesses and times when we continue. Well, hopefully we all continue to mature over time. So it's not like the end of the world if you've ever done that. But anyway, it's not good. One of the easiest ways to identify a true disciple of Christ is how compassionately they treat others. I'm going to guess that the name of his talk is going to be something like be a peacemaker, or be peacemaker, Jesus Christ peacemakers, or something like that, because he used that word a lot. He talked about how today is Palm Sunday. That was like a big thing today. Like, I feel like almost everybody made mention of the fact that it's Palm Sunday. Maybe not everybody, but it definitely it definitely was a theme for today. In fact, in the opening prayer, the person that said the prayer talked about that. He said, he talked about how 2 millennia ago, Christ entered Jerusalem on that Palm Sunday. Make no mistake about it, contention is evil. Oh yeah, he said okay, he said higher and holier way. That's like been one of the big things lately. I don't think I've put that on my tracker yet. Maybe I have, but just so I can check it later. Higher and holier. I'm going to add that to my phrase tracker to see how many times that's been said in general conference. Okay, and then here's one thing right here. He said, okay, listen carefully. And I wish I had it word for word, but he said, if there's any good we can say about another person, um, that uplifts them and stuff like that to others, that should be our standard of communication. Our so our standard of communication should be talking good about others rather than bad. Um, he talked about how people don't need your judgment. He gave some examples: someone who got divorced, a returned missionary, stuff like that. Let's see. I urge you to be a peacemaker now and always. We can change the world one person and one interaction at a time. Dignified dialogue. And then all the now is the time of like he gave all these different examples of things that we should get rid of now. Cast Satan out of your relationships. And then he did, and then he said this, and I'm pretty sure he's said this before, the best is yet to come. And in this case, he says the best is yet to come for those that spend their lives building up others. Let's take a quick look at the scripture citation index. I'm going to look up the best is yet to come. I'll just look up yet to come. No, that's not good. Because that brings up other... Okay. Best is yet to... Let's just do that. I could have sworn... Because it looks like it has not been said in general conference. Pretty sure it was the intro, but the best is yet to come as we will all become more proficient in the use of this extraordinary missionary tool. But that's from Preach My Gospel. I'm going to have to look into that further. Well, that's true, but I'm talking about in the church. Higher, holier. This comes up 8 times. The first one is 1985, but all other higher holiers show up starting in 2018 by President Nelson in his opening remarks. So that's the first time that we hear that phrase, unless it's said another way, like higher and holier way, which I'm sure it has been. But higher, holier, opening remarks of the October 2018 General Conference by President Nelson himself. And since that time, it's been said a bunch of times. But that's another one. I'll have to look at that closer later. Okay. Oh yeah. So I went ahead. Honey, can you go have him be quiet? I know. I'm doing a live stream right now. Okay. I went into this. I started to kind of work on going back because we were wondering like how unusual it was that that President Nelson hasn't spoken in the Saturday morning or the Saturday sessions, and because he's always spoken on Saturday throughout his entire presidency, this is the first time that he hasn't spoken on a Saturday. I was able to go back to President Monson only partway through. It's going to take some time for me to do the whole thing. I was surprised to find out, and I'm surprised to find out that he didn't speak at all. President Monson didn't speak at all during the October 2017 General Conference. I feel like that's something that I should have remembered, but I just wasn't as keenly focused on these kind of things back then. I'm sure that I probably noticed it at the time, because it's always a bummer when you don't hear from the prophet, or you have to wait till the next session to hear from the prophet. So I'm sure probably at the time I took note, but then it quickly faded from my memory. But President Monson did not speak at all in the October 2017 General Conference. And then for the last few years of his life, 2015 and 16 and 17, the most he ever spoke in any of those general conferences was 2 times. And it seems, well, so starting with April 2015, he always first spoke at the general priesthood session. And then he would typically talk during the Sunday morning session. But in 2014, he did speak first in the Saturday morning session. So I'm just going to have to keep going back and to fill this out. But we have had one conference at least where the prophet has not spoken at all, and that was the October 2017 General Conference. Okay. And then the question is President Nelson just going to speak one more time? And if so, that'll be the least amount of times that he's spoken in General Conference, because the most that he's spoken in a conference was in April 2018 and April 2020 with 5 talks. And then 4 talks, October 2019 and October 2018. And then the least amount he's ever spoken is 3 times. So this may be a new thing during his presidency where he only speaks 2 times. And could that be indicative of his health and kind of a sign that he's, on his way out? I don't know. It seems like that maybe was the case with President Monson. Again, starting in April 2015, he only ever spoke 2 times each conference since that time. So just some interesting things to note. Okay, let's get back to the chat. See what you guys are saying. Green Tree, let him share his insights on General Conference. It's only twice a year. I don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. You're talking to somebody else. Daniel Hershey, we did hear from Jesus, whether by my own voice or the voice of my servants, it is the same. Yeah, that's true. Trisha Christensen, my hardest part is social media, so maybe it's time for me to stop. I've never changed hearts through my words. Ugh. Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's good to withdraw completely from social media. But what I think it is good to do is just not engage in those debates and just simply be a shining example to others in a non-contentious way. And it goes along with that whole idea of you catch more flies with sugar than vinegar, right? Because the vinegar would be like the endless debates where neither side, it's painfully obvious that neither side is going to bend. They're not interested in truth. They're not open to the other person's point of view. So just show the other side your goodness, that you are a good person, because it's not necessarily hitting on the specific points. It's like, take an issue. Let's say that there's an issue in the church that we are definitely against. It's wrong. We've identified it as wrong. Instead of necessarily just focusing on that issue, show the world what a good person you are and what a person on the opposite side of that issue looks like. It's a person that's not angry, combative, is not there to demean you and stuff like that. Show them what right looks like without even having to talk about the issue. And maybe still, talk about the issue, but just in a kind way, or in a way where you're kind of like putting it out there, but you're not like looking for a fight. And if someone does start a fight with you, just don't engage. You don't have to answer. You don't have to respond. No one said that you have to respond. Okay. Come to Zion. April is annual and October is semi-annual. Yep. Sarah Lusk instead of semi-annual. Daniel Hershey, say good things about others. Let that be our conversation. Nathan Shaw. President Faust spoke from his chair a few times. Uh, yeah, him and President oh gosh, Boyd K. Packer. Nathan Greer. Church was founded in April. Opal Malaire. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but President Monson was too ill to attend the October conference before he passed. Yeah, I think that was the case. Sherry Ware. April is annual, while October is semi-annual. Carrie Taylor. Awesome advice. Smiley face, smiley face, smiley face. Um, Double high five. 100% star. Sherry Link. I find it hard. I find hard for me to listen to people who refuse to speak universal truths. Yeah, so you don't have to listen to them. You don't have to listen. Lean on Christ. One of my thoughts from this session of Jesus Christ will only present himself to the whole church once each member has individually and personally met him one-on-one. Possibly. I can't remember who said it. I think someone had quoted President Nelson. Yeah, it was Elder Kevin R. Duncan of the 70. He quoted something that President Nelson had said, that the time is coming when those who obey the Lord will be separated from those who do not. I want to see if I can actually find that. So we're in the April 2020 Liahona. I wonder, is this just in the Liahona? Or was this in conference? Let me look at the scripture citation index. Nope, it's just in the Liahona. So in the April 2020 Liahona, President Nelson says, "The time is coming when those who do not obey the Lord will be separated from those who do. Our safest assurance is to continue to be worthy of admission to his holy house. The greatest gift you can give the world is to keep yourself unspotted from the world, worthy to attend his holy house. His gift to you will be the peace and security of knowing that you are worthy to meet him whenever that time comes." Referring to, well, uh, no, not necessarily talking about the second coming, but it definitely could be applied to the second coming. But it could also apply to whenever you pass away. But he does talk about a separation, and if you're in the church, you can be separated. There's a lot of people I know that have separated themselves, and it felt like this was a big warning today that if you don't want to be separated, then you should work on contention in how you treat others. So in that Liahona article, he references, when he's talking about separating, he references Doctrine and Covenants, section 86. Let's see. The Lord gives the meaning of the parable of the wheat and the tares. So we all know that. I'm not going to read it, but you can check that out if you want. So President Nelson said that time is coming, the separation of the wheat and the tares, and it felt like that he was hitting on that today as well. Speaking to the wheat, well, no, speaking to the tares, because you don't have to remain a tare. You can always change. So find yourself counted with the wheat. Okay, the haystack says, "Did you see President Nelson's hands? They look strong, almost like brass." No, I didn't. That's an interesting observation. Michelle Tyler, didn't President Nelson say no peace? Say no peace at any cost. He wants us to stand for truth in a peaceful way. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. It's like it's kind of like what I've said before. Living the gospel standards and being a strong disciple of Christ, it will induce contention from others, the wicked, because they don't like it. They don't like you. But we should not be the one starting it, and trying to pick fights or anything like that. People will of themselves get angry at you for living your standards, for talking about Christ, talking about the temple, whatever. So it's not, you can't be like, oh no, there's contention, I better not talk about Christ, or I better be careful. Like, you're should still be, you should still have your light shine, but don't engage in contention. No one says that you have to sit there and argue with somebody, and there are people that don't want to come to a resolution. They just want to fight and argue. So there's no point. But if there's somebody that you can tell is genuine, and they want to actually talk through the issues, and they have an open mind, then you can do that. And you can do that and have a respectful conversation. Both Elsa C says, I struggle with anger and contention, especially with people attacking the church. Last year, I prayed really hard and asked Heavenly Father to help me, and the Spirit clearly told me to just walk away. Yeah, that's what you do. Whenever people like attack me in my life, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, I don't, and I've gotten better with this over the years. I feel like I'm the best that I've ever been with it. I just walk away. You take away the fuel, essentially, from the fire. They want to have a fire, you just take away the fuel. You don't add to it. And they may rage for a little while, but then eventually, as you don't interact and you don't engage with it, a lot of times it just kind of peters out. Karen Clark, I was verbally and psychologically abused in a 28-year marriage, now married 19 years, and still have a fiery temper. It causes contention. President Nelson's talk was to me. Oh, so you were the reason for that talk. Okay. We're all good, everybody. Okay, it was just because of Karen. I'm just kidding. Karen, it's for everybody. Carrie Taylor, wheat up. Ha ha ha. Peace. 100%. 100%. Hawaiian flower star. Kuritsi 4. I also noticed his hands. And El Paculi also noticed his hands. What in the world? There was something with his hands? What are you guys talking about? Hold on. Okay. I'm going to go and look at it. Let's go to you're not going to be able to see it right now. I'm doing that intentionally. Pause. Let's go back. Let's take a look at President Nelson's hands. I may or may not be able to. What are you guys talking about? Are you talking about the color of his hands? Did he squeeze something really tight? Like, what are you talking about? I see his hands right here. He's going like this. Okay, so let me show you what I'm seeing right now. Is it like the luster of his hands? Because they are a little bit shiny. Are you guys trying to say that he's been translated? Give me a second. All right, there's his hands again. Huh. I have to look at that again. The haystack says he just seems strong and powerful. And then he says earlier, his hands stood out. I don't know why, but they look strong. I'm reviewing the video again. He was a heart surgeon. Turning Heart says his eyes seem to be piercing to the soul. Make sure to check out the Turning Hearts channel and subscribe to her. Take the boots off.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
Sorry, that was contention. My kids are always walking around my room with their shoes on and boots, and we have carpet. And there's cow poop and chicken poop on the bottom of the boots. Kiara Guyman, not sure, but for me, his hands make the message just so much stronger. I'll tell you this. President Nelson, he really speaks with a lot of body language. And I've pointed this out a number of times. Some very key times. When he said that time is running out, it's all about his body language. He leans into the mic. He like stops and pauses. He leans into the mic. His eyes, his eyebrows go up. There's so much going on with his body language. And then the same thing happened when he called on us to be the people of the second coming. Again, he paused and then he looked around. Like he wasn't just like casually saying, oh yeah, the church, I call on the church to be the people of the second coming, as though it's just like, yeah, of course we're the people of the second coming. This whole dispensation, we're the people getting ready for Christ. No, he was talking to he made it pretty clear with his body language that he was referring to this specific group of people. Us, this last general conference, October 2022. So that's something that you definitely have to look at when you're listening to President Nelson. El Paculi, I don't know what it was about his hands, but obviously a great number of us noticed. I'm gonna have to go back and like watch it myself, because like I was like sitting here at the computer and the TV is back that way, so I'm just kind of like sitting here listening, and then when I hear something I type it, I type up my notes, so I wasn't really watching as much as I was just listening. S. Say says wheat is a name in my family history and should be a reminder to me, but like Karen, the message was strongly for me too. Jay Kennedy. Well, here's the thing. Hopefully this makes you feel better. If you are able to admit that and admit perfections, then I think you're already looking pretty good, because there's a whole class of people. The more toxic, the more prideful, the more down this way you go, the harder it is to admit anything, that you do anything wrong. If you're in a position where you cannot admit that you mess up, that you've done something wrong, that's a serious problem. that is a serious problem, because it's part of repentance. Part of repentance is you have to realize and have the ability to recognize when you do something wrong and truly believe it and realize that there's a necessity for change. And then on top of that, say sorry. And there's people that they cannot do that. They feel like it's the end of them if they do, if they admit fault or weakness or whatever. So the fact that you're able to realize that there's a problem, that's already by itself, I think, a good sign. Daniel Hershey, he definitely has a strong body language. The haystack, same with Elder Stevenson. When he testified yesterday, the camera closed up twice. Sarah Lusk, do a side-by-side from the last conference. He looks way stronger. Huh. Okay. Let's take a look. No, I'll do that in another video. But good idea. Christian Fire Poppy channel says, I just counted, and his next talk he's about to give will be the 40th. Yeah, that's true. I counted that as well. Here we have it here. So you can see that this talk that he just gave, we don't know what the name of it is yet, the title of it, but that was his 39th talk. So 40, that's the number. We've talked about that recently. The significance of not just 40, but the number 4, 40, 400, 4,000. Because remember, it was 4,000 years before Christ came. Um, you had 4,000 years on that side, and then we have 3,000 years on this side. We haven't got to the last 1,000 years. We're about to. But you had 4,000 years before Christ came, right? 4,000 years of testing, trial, things like that. You had the 40 years of Israel wandering in the wilderness, and it was a purification time, because that first generation that came out of Egypt was not allowed to go to the promised land. It's a time of purification, essentially. The 40 days and 40 nights of the rain and the flood, a time of purification. So that's an interesting thing to think about with President Nelson. We're about to hear his 40th talk. And so could that mean that we're at the end of our preparation before the second coming? I don't know. Just something to maybe think about, wonder about. Could be. He gave us the time is running out warning during his 11th talk in General Conference. And 11 for a lot of you and for me as well has been kind of a special number, so I think it's significant that he said that on his 11th. His 17th talk was the first talk of the April 2020 General Conference. The April 2020 General Conference, that was that really important conference, and he started it out with his 17th talk. And it was during the 18th talk that he revealed Christ, the new church symbol. It was during his 18th talk. Yeah, I don't think that these things are arbitrary. I do not really believe in coincidence. It's interesting that his 35th talk was called Now is the Time, because after that you only have 5 more talks before you get to 40. Dang, a lot of really interesting things. Amy Luria, peacemakers needed. Jake Kennedy, I think it is a blessing and a sign to us to see him strong and consistent. Bloomy Dictionary, I've been through about 18 months of counseling after my husband's years of infidelity has come to light, and I chose to stay as he has terminal cancer, and I've really wrestled through forgiveness and cycles of mourning and forgiving and healing, and it's line upon line and precept upon precept. We cannot run faster than we are able, and we will be greeted. I don't know, greeted or given, or I don't know, the grace and given the grace to forgive and heal beyond our capacity through the atonement. I truly feel all the talks this conference has been a last warning to be a higher and holier people. Yeah, well, that's good for you. Bloomy's Dictionary, being forgiving and not giving in to contention, and just, I know that's, well, not that I personally know, but I can imagine that's a really hard thing to go through. So just keep it up. Let's Get Prepared says he was speaking to me. Trust me. Mike Wills, hello from Kentucky. Sherry Johnson, 11 has been significant in our family also. In fact, my dad wrote a paper listing all the 11s in our family. Yeah, I think it's a special number. I'd like to see if it's like in the scriptures. I'm not sure that it is too much, but takeacountrylook.com says discontent in my ward family. I was the second counselor in the elders quorum, and the president sent our second counselor to my house to beat me up and threaten my wife. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope that situation resolves itself and that we can find it in ourselves to forgive and just not add to the fire. Amy Luria, absolutely loved this talk about peacemakers. One of the takeaways for me was that he blessed us to make to make any adjustments that we may need, that may be needed, so that your behavior is enabling of a true follower of Jesus. Latter-day Help, didn't 3 people talk about contention? This means no more contention, and having charity is extremely important, especially if the prophet spoke about it. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. This is all just like starting to like really set in with me. Especially again, thinking about the next talk will be his 40th talk, and knowing what the number 40 means, typically in the scriptures. That now is the time is running out, and now we have like potentially this final kind of warning. It may not be, who knows, maybe it's still a few years, but it's just something to think about. Queen of the North, we need more charity than ever, and to focus on being peacemakers and do away with any and all contention. I am also so saddened to see how many fall into the trap of hate and contention. Crying face. Daniel Hershey, there have been a few that move out though. Mike Wills, okay, I plead ignorance. What does contention mean? It means like when you get into fights, when you argue with people, when you, anger just generally. Like there's a way that you can disagree with people, but do it in a peaceful way, in a way that doesn't make tempers flare. So it's avoiding just like anger and hate and fights and stuff like that. Carla Lima, President Nelson repeated, "Now is the time," in his talk earlier, in the same words he said in April 2022. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. If you just joined the live stream, yeah. And that's something that I'll probably count up once we have the talks out, or once I have time to go look at that, because the number of times that he said now is the time could be significant. Well, just the fact that he repeated it, doesn't matter how many times, we should pay attention to the fact that he's saying now is the time. Well, why now? Why now, President Nelson? Well, it probably has to do with what he said in the Liahona, that the time is coming when those that are obedient will be separated from those who are not. We know that he's talked a lot about the second coming, so probably that. Matt Kuhn, my friend from Murray, my girls love your multicolored chicken eggs. Oh, good. I'm going to pull that up just in case there's people here that weren't in the live stream where I showed it. Give me just 1 second. We have a good mix of hens. We still need a few more different types, but I'm very happy with the color of eggs that we're getting so far. Here we go. Give me a second. Go to that. Bam. Those are our eggs. We're getting blue, green, light pink, kind of a brownish color. There is a chicken out there called I don't know how to pronounce it. It's either a Marin or a Moran, and I think it's Cuckoo Moran or Cuckoo Marin, that lays like a dark brown egg. It's kind of chocolatey in color. So we need to get one of those, and probably a few others, but I feel like we have a pretty good spectrum going on here. Very happy about this. They all taste the same. There's like no difference, but it's just fun. And then whenever we give eggs to people, it's fun to have a good mix of colors. Sherry Johnson, are you selling eggs? We probably will in a little bit. Back when we had our last flock, we had a couple people that bought eggs from us. And you don't really like make a profit off of it, but it just kind of helps pay for the expense of feed and stuff like that. It's just fun. Zach Moss, what would be the difference between contention and defense of the church? Well, I think you can just feel it, I feel like one of the things is, uh, okay, let me think about this. I feel like you can just feel it. You can feel when it's more of like just an anger fest rather than you're not trying to have a heated conversation. Like if you're the one that's being the more stabilizing force, like hey, let's talk about this in a civil way. Let's be kind to each other. Like we can have differences, but we can talk about it without raising our voices, without calling names, um, stuff like that. I think that's how you do it. You know, you don't bend when it comes to truth. Like truth is not negotiable, but you can like listen to the other person's point of view, be respectful, and not turn it into, you know, a holier than thou type thing, or putting the other person down and stuff like that. You know, and then when you do have somebody on the other side that is unbending, they're not really wanting a real genuine conversation. They just want to shove their point of view down your throat in a really mean way. There's just not really a point. You just kind of disengage, you know, if the other person's being unreasonable and not respectful. Linda Martinez, your eggs look like Easter eggs. Looks like Easter eggs we die. So pretty. Thank you. Yeah. Um I don't know why it makes me so happy, but I love them. Oh, we need to get one that lays dark brown eggs, but we also need to get one that lays white eggs. So far, we haven't had any chickens that lay white eggs. Creative Gene, contention is contention in anything done in anger. Yeah, you know what? Why don't we just like look up the definition of contention? And I think that's right, by the way. Contention, heated disagreement, in assertion, especially one maintained in argument. We'll see what Merriam-Webster says. A point advanced or maintained in a debate or argument. The disagreement that results from opposing arguments. But I don't think it's just simply that, because again, you don't give in to evil. You don't say, "Oh, you know what? Okay, yeah, smoking. I'm sorry that I said that smoking is not good for your health." It's more than that. It's being respectful. Like you can tell someone that smoking is not good, but without it resulting in a big fight, and letting them know that you love them and you're concerned about them, rather than, you know what, you just don't get it. You don't understand. You know, you're just a bad person, aren't you? Mrs. Chef Yoda, contention, strife, struggle, a violent effort to obtain something or to resist a person, claim or injury, contest, quarrel, strife in words or debate, quarrel, angry contest, controversy. Zach Moss, the thing I won't walk away from. Okay, the thing I won't walk away from a challenge, especially with evangelicals or anti Mormons. Well, I would recommend that you do learn to walk away if the other person is not sincere about uh, understanding your point of view. There are people that all they want to do is just argue because they get attention from it. They feel like they're, um, they have like maybe a grandiose picture of themselves, like them defending the truth against the evil Mormons or whatever. Just I think you have to really understand when you're having a genuine discussion and when you're not. And if you're in one that you're not having a genuine discussion, just politely, I would say, just kind of dip out. And then just continue to be a good example and stand up in a respectful way for your beliefs. Essays, I could not add to my previous message, but it was volume 13, number 16 in the Journal of Discourses. I always thought of 11 as the 11th hour. Yeah, there is. I think I actually looked this up one time looking for 11 because I remember coming across that idea. Mrs. Chef Yoda has more definitions for contention: strife or endeavor to excel, emulation, eagerness, zeal, ardor, uh, vehemence of endeavor. Caritzi 4 says, for me, it was about 1/16 into this session when I really noticed his hands. Man, this is so weird. I gotta look at that. Uh, Doug Wheeler, looks like his talk was around 17 minutes, give or take. That's another thing we'll have to look into once they post it on the church website. Excuse me. VoPro 72, we can agree to disagree without causing contention. Yep. I have somebody in my family that is super duper just secular liberal, and anytime I'm around this person, it's like I never agree with anything, and I am always polite. I don't engage in the argument because I know what's going on, and I've determined over such a long time that this person, what they're doing is, it's not so much that they're really trying to convert you to their way of thinking, although that would be a bonus. It seems to be more of like a look how this I am. Look how much I understand the issues and how much I represent my side. It's like a performance. Because again, we've talked about toxic people before, and one thing that a portion of them really want is just they want your attention, good or bad. Either one will do. They just want you to acknowledge them and their brilliance, whether you disagree with them or not. So sometimes it's not even about the issues. They're putting on a performance for you sometimes. And do you think you're going to get anywhere with that if you like try and argue your side? Probably not. Daniel Hershey, 7 and 11 are prime numbers. Oh, that's true. If there's anyone that doesn't know what a prime number is, it's a number that can only be divided by the number 1 and itself. And then you end up with a whole number. So in other words, like you can divide 7 by whatever, but it's not going to end up being, what are they called? Natural numbers? Whole numbers? I don't know. You know what I'm saying. Brendan Johnson, can I ask what I should do? Wait. Can I ask what should I do after paying my tithes? Now I have lost my income. What should I do? You always pay your tithing. You always do that. You pray for help, and sometimes you make sacrifices. One thing that I had to do when I was in that situation is I had to join the doggone army. And that's something that I never truly considered. I was like, no, that's for other people. That's not the way that my life is supposed to go. But it turned out, no, that is actually how my life is supposed to go. So this is like a highly personal thing, Brendan, but always pay your tithing. And you may have to do things that are crappy, but listen to the Spirit, and the Spirit will direct you the way that you should go. And that's what happened to me, and I can promise you it turned out great. And now because I joined the army, Now I have that experience and all that stuff. Now I have a government administration that's in charge of my affairs, the VA. They handle all my affairs. And so there's things that you can't possibly know, but the Spirit does. And you follow the promptings of the Spirit, and it'll be for your good. Okay. Charitzi, I'm confused, so scratch that. It's about where he states how we treat each other really matters. Oh well, just watch his hands next time. Deanna Anderson, count me in as one of those who laughed at myself when President Nelson called us out to be thinking of someone else who needed to hear portions of his talk. That was definitely the funniest moment of this conference when he said that. But of course, all of us, we all need to do it. We're all prone to it because we all have the natural man. Takeacountrylook.com says, give us a military salute. Oh, okay. Go back to this. Dang, why does it always go on crooked? Okay, put this on. Around my fat cheeks. I can no longer pass a PT test. Gabby, insurance from the VA has been a lifesaver with my veteran husband who is always getting hurt at work. Yeah, that's true. If you go in the military, not everybody qualifies for VA healthcare afterwards. I can't remember exactly what the requirements are, but I think one of the big things was to have service-related disability when you come out of the service, which I do. And so I qualified for VA healthcare, and it covers everything. That's been a blessing for us, and I don't take it lightly, believe me. Carmedic of Tucson, if you need financial help, pay your tithing and not be afraid to speak to your bishop and elders quorum president. They will help you too. Oh yeah, that's right. You should. I should have said that as well. See your bishop if you need help with things. Ephraim's maiden, the Lord has always provided for us when we paid our tithing. Money has literally showed up the very next day, that we would ask for it. Food would last longer. But just know it's not transactional. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And by the way, this helmet, don't think that I took this with me after the service. You have to turn in your equipment. I bought this at a military surplus store just because I missed my stuff, and it's just kind of a fun memorabilia type thing. Pink Sadie Lady, I tuned in late and you're wearing an army helmet. Glenda Wheeler, Jared, you're so funny. Ha 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 ha. The haystack, we need to be we need to be the peaceful standard of disciples for when a large number of converts come in. We need a firm foundation to accommodate the changes. Yeah, that's obviously that's going to be another part of it. I truly believe that when the second coming comes and there's large numbers of people that join the church, most, if not all of us, are probably going to take some form of leadership role, whether that's a calling or just kind of being an example of what it is to be a member of the church. So Jason Smart, he was in his 70s and he looked old and tired. He looks younger and more vibrant than he did 30 years ago. He has been renewed. Maybe I should do a video sometime where I like get a big compilation of pictures of him. And yeah, Gabby, yeah, my husband was medically discharged, 40% disabled. Kevin Wright, we can be bold on issues without being angry and using mean and degrading language. Yeah, and that can definitely be hard sometimes because you hear it all the time. It's in your mind because other people use it, and it just like It's just so natural to like want to downplay the other person, to degrade them. But yeah. Zach Moss, what was your MOS? Mine was 13 Bravo. I was 92 Yankee, which is a unit supply specialist. So I would have worked in the supply room. And you can like work at, battalion, brigade, whatever, even division. But I was just worked at the company. I was a supply clerk the whole time. Carrie Taylor, 50% disability or higher gets free VA healthcare. Yep. Well, that's me. Karen Clark, I'm not going to say what should, I don't know. Karen Clark, the eggs are so pretty, but you can take the picture down now. Well, I don't know. I'm going to keep it up. I like looking at it. Okay, Modi. But also the talk by D. Todd Christofferson was really awesome. Yes, it was. I forgot what it was about just like right now, but I have notes. Let's see. What did he talk about? He talked about Palm Sunday, Last Supper. Oh, yeah. He mentioned the city of Enoch. Okay. Yeah. His talk was all about becoming one and the importance of becoming one. Yeah. And that's Zion. That's what Zion is. He talked about how the early saints failed to establish New Jerusalem, meaning the center place in Jackson County, Missouri, because they were not one. So, is that like a big hint to us right now that, hey, maybe now's the time? So, everybody really, really work hard, avoid contention, be a peacemaker, and now we'll be able to establish the center place. If everybody were to put on Christ, then we would all become one. He used the phrase higher and holier. He talked about the concept of being at war with yourself, at war with others, and then at war, like world leaders being at war. So it's like there's different levels to it. You have to not be at war with yourself. You can't be a hot mess. You have to take care of those issues and be firmly committed to Christ and put down the natural man. And then after that, work on your relationship with others. And then after that, different levels of society all the way up to world leaders. There's also been another word. I feel like it's been said a few times, and that word is submit or submission. And I should probably search for that one too. Submit. If I remember right, that's what Islam means. I'm not saying that, that we're supposed to be Islamic, but submission is a very important concept in the gospel, submitting your will to God's will. Unity requires harmony. One within, one at home, one in the church, and then eventually one in Zion. There was more in the next talk by Camilla and Johnson. She used the terms fallen world and fallen condition. That's another one that I was gonna look up. Fallen world. I'm gonna do /condition because maybe that comes up a number of times. I'm not sure. Elder Suarez, he brought up he was quoting something where it was Hosanna to the Son of David, Hosanna to the highest, as he was talking about Palm Sunday. I'm gonna have to just really go and scour these talks. We all should, and obviously these talks are going to be taught in Elders Quorum as well as Relief Society. This has already been a really good conference. Just so many things. Kevin R. Duncan brought up the whole idea of each temple dedicated decreases Satan's power throughout the world. I'm actually wondering if he watched my YouTube, or if he's watched my channel or my video that I did about that, about temples affecting the geography in which they're built. But it seems like it's not just the localized area; it's the whole world, and that's why Satan doesn't want temples. And he quoted Brigham Young's quote about the bells of hell ringing every time the saints attempt to build a temple. And that's something that I went over in a video. I wonder if he's watched my channel, because we just talked about this just a little while ago. And then he's the one that read that quote about the time coming when those who obey the Lord will be separating from those who do not. And then he had this quote, and oh, how we will need his power in the days ahead. He pointed out the fact that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated on a Palm Sunday. Gosh, this is just crazy. This is craziness. So exciting. Okay, I'm probably going to take off in a minute because, again, I feel the need for a little nap. This is all just kind of like... this is actually kind of draining me. I feel like there's just so much to think about. What is your secret prayer note about? Oh, that's just the hymn. That was the name of the hymn. Pink City Lady, I have so much to work on. Oh. All of us are just like, oh no. Am I messing it up for the whole church? Is it me? Is it me? I've got stuff I got to do. Cynthia Cardinal, love the Easter eggs, Green Tree. I think the brethren are aware of what goes on the YouTube community. It really seems like it. I hope that I'm okay, that I'm on the good side. On their good side, they view me good. I'm trying the best that I can. Chris Johnson, we gray rock a lot with our inactive and agnostic adult children. We're supposed to maintain relationships, and this is the only way we can do that without contention. Yeah, if you don't know what gray rock is, it's a strategy or a tactic that you use when you have a really toxic person in your life. And when I say toxic, I'm talking about people that argue, manipulate, lie. They don't have your best interests at heart. Just people that are nasty in whatever way. If you have someone like that, and it's like really harming you psychologically, maybe even physically or financially or whatever, sometimes you have to like separate yourself. You have to distance yourself. And part of that can be, it's not like you have to like necessarily completely cut them off. Sometimes maybe you do, depending on how bad things are. But another thing that you do is you use the gray rock method, which is you become boring. Because ultimately what these people look for is they look for attention. They want to get you upset, or they want you to admire them. They just want you to react to them. And so if you become boring to them, then you're not feeding into their what they're looking for. They're like, oh, I can't really get anything out of this person. So they move on to the next target and try and get their attention that way. So you just become boring. They ask you questions. You just give kind of short answers. Not short like mean, but short and just kind of boring and bland and generic. You talk about surface level topics. In that way, you starve them of that, and then they just know that they can't really go to you for what they're looking for, and eventually, hopefully, fingers crossed, they leave you alone. Let's see. Tim Washington, yes, I just had to get off as much social media as possible to learn to reduce arguments in my life, or at least reduce anger and frustration. Yep. For sure. Michael Nixon, is that the same as trolling? I'm not sure if you're talking to someone else or me, but definitely don't troll. That's another toxic behavior where you're because there's no accountability and maybe nobody knows who you are. uh you write nasty things about somebody, or you do something to intentionally upset them or whatever. So that's something that we should all not do. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna take off. Gonna take a quick nap, and then we'll go into this last session of General Conference, and hopefully there's going to be temple announcements. Hopefully there's going to be some other kind of big announcement. Probably not. I feel like whenever there's like adjustments to the church or programs or things like that, that's usually brought up like in like the first session of conference. Like for example, changes to the First Strength of Youth manual, uh, and stuff like that. So I doubt there's going to be any like big changes to the church or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that there can't be something pretty extraordinary as far as temples are concerned, like temples that are announced, or things that are said, just like the last conference. Well, no, President Nelson said that during his main talk, but something really interesting could be said in President Nelson's last talk, and hopefully he does talk. I assume that he will. So, okay, guys, I'm going to take off. Thanks for joining me. We got one more to go, and then we'll talk.